My husband changed me. Once I was someone who shied away from social interactions. With him, I thought I could finally be happy. But after we got married, everything changed. The yelling began and the shoving, and eventually he kicked me while I was sick in bed. This is not the man I married. Love has turned into fear. I want to leave, but I'm too scared. Still, I know that if anything is going to change, it has to start with me. I need to speak up. Let's break up. My name is Scarlett. I'm 29 years old, and I've been married to Daniel for 2 years. I'm a housewife. I lost my parents when I was young, and my grandmother, who raised me, passed away when I was in high school. Since then, I've been afraid of getting close to anyone, because it hurts too much when they leave. I never had a boyfriend or close friends. I was always alone. But Daniel was different. He saw something in me that no one else did. I was annoyed by his persistence at first, but eventually I gave in, and he became the most important person in my life. That's how we ended up getting married 2 years ago. But now I'm starting to question if it was the right decision. Daniel changed after we got married. Within a few months, he started coming home less and less, often without telling me when he'd be back. He began criticizing me for the way I managed the house. Why isn't dinner ready? He'd ask coldly. When I explained that I thought he'd be late, he would sigh and give me a withering look. You're staying home on my dime and can't even manage the housework? What kind of wife are you? Then he'd grab his change of clothes and leave without another word. I started making dinner every night, even on the days he didn't come home. But sometimes he wouldn't return for a whole week. I couldn't stop wondering if he was tired of me or if he saw something in me he didn't like after we got married. I didn't want our sweet memories to be lies. I was terrified of being abandoned and alone again. My mind was a mess, and after 6 months of living like this, I decided that something had to change. I didn't want to be a burden on Daniel, and honestly, we were hardly even a married couple anymore. When Daniel finally came home, I asked him if he was considering a divorce. To my surprise, he looked shocked. That's not it, Scarlett. I've just been busy with work. I'm sorry for being cold lately. Please don't talk like that, he said, panic in his voice, and hugged me for the first time in months. I felt guilty for not considering how hard he was working. But if he didn't communicate, how could I understand his struggles? I asked him to keep me in the loop moving forward, to talk to me when something was bothering him. Of course, I promise, he said. Seeing Daniel smile brought me relief for the first time in a while. For a moment, our troubles seemed like a bad dream, and life returned to normal. Even though there were still days when Daniel didn't come home, he kept me updated, and just that alone started to make me happy again. However, a year after we got married, on our wedding anniversary, Daniel stood me up. He never showed up at the restaurant we had reserved. I was heartbroken, especially since it was our anniversary. I never thought he'd cancel. Of course, it was because of work. I tried to be understanding, but it still hurt. I wish he would have told me sooner. When Daniel finally came home the day after our anniversary and I told him how I felt, he glared at me. Why would you say something like that? Don't you see how hard I'm working? I do appreciate how hard he works, but I wanted him to prioritize our anniversary. When I expressed this, Daniel knocked the food off the table, shattering the dish. The sound echoed through the room. You're so selfish. Are you sure you're not just after my money? He shouted. Daniel's mother, Olivia, founded her own company where Daniel and his brother work. Many have pegged Daniel as the future CEO, and he had warned me before that gold diggers had targeted him in the past. The only one who really loves me is Scarlett, he once told me with a smile. And honestly, I've never once thought about his family's wealth. When I told him this, Daniel looked at me with disbelief. Then get a job. You've got too much free time if you're complaining about me. You do it if you really love me, right? Would getting a job really solve this issue? I hesitated, but ultimately, I nodded. I didn't want Daniel to think I was with him for his money. And more than anything, I didn't want him to leave me. I began to question my sanity, convinced that Daniel's anger was my fault. So I found a full-time job, hoping that if I kept the house tidy before and after work, Daniel wouldn't complain. One day, Olivia contacted me. Scarlett, I heard you're working now. What happened? Weren't you planning to quit after getting married? She asked. I forced a smile and said I had time to spare. Olivia had always been kind to me since the moment we met. She was a busy CEO, yet she always checked in on me. I vividly remember the time we went shopping right after the wedding. She looked at me like I was a dream come true. Daniel used to have a sister who tragically passed away, and maybe that's why Olivia is so kind to me. Reach out if you're ever in trouble, she once said, her kind words nearly bringing me to tears. I never knew my parents, but I imagine this is how it feels to have a mother. Thinking about it warms my heart a little. I didn't want to cause any trouble for Olivia. Supporting her son Daniel was my role after all. But that was easier said than done, especially when Daniel hardly ever came home. Since I started working, he stopped handing over any money to me. We were getting by, but I couldn't help but wonder if this was okay. I found myself troubled by the same thoughts over and over. Nothing had changed since before. Just as I was contemplating this, Daniel came home after being away for a long time. "Did you say anything to Mom?" he asked, his voice tense. I told him about the call I received from Olivia. He seemed angry at first, but then smiled in relief when he found out I hadn't said anything to her. "That's my wife. Make sure to tell Mom we're getting along just fine, okay?" he said. I asked Daniel if we were really doing as well as he thought. "I can focus on my job as the future CEO because you handle things so well, Scarlett. Once you're the CEO's wife, I'll treat you to a lavish life," he said, clearly satisfied, but hearing that made my heart sink. I never wanted to be a CEO's wife. I just wanted to build a happy home with Daniel. That was enough for me. As I said this, I felt a sharp pain on my cheek. Daniel had slapped me. "How dare you say that when I'm working so hard? I married you, so just listen to me," he snarled. This wasn't the Daniel I knew. Tears started to flow, which only seemed to anger him more. "Wake me up when dinner's ready," he said, storming off to the bedroom. I made dinner while crying that night, eating a tasteless meal in silence with Daniel. Things went downhill from there. Daniel started coming home more often. Perhaps Olivia had said something, but he was cold as ice to me. I thought about leaving him, but I didn't know if he would agree to a divorce. And what if he hit me again? Ever since that day, Daniel would poke or lightly kick me, and I found myself flinching whenever he raised his voice or hand. He even made me quit my job, even though it was his idea for me to work in the first place. Was it just to torment me? I had no idea what Daniel wanted from me. My sole focus every day was to avoid getting yelled at by Daniel. Amidst all this, Daniel invited me to Olivia's birthday party. "There will be a lot of people there, so don't embarrass me. Get your hair done and wear something appropriate," he instructed. Despite everything, I was looking forward to a break. Seeing Olivia would give me the strength to get through the days. But my luck ran out. I came down with a high fever on the day of Olivia's birthday. My temperature was 103 degrees, and it might even go higher. "I can't go to your parents' house," I told Daniel. As expected, Daniel yelled at me. "How could you get sick at a time like this? You're useless," he shouted. I apologized over and over, but Daniel kicked me repeatedly through the comforter. "I'm going ahead. Get ready and come to my parents' house," he ordered, insisting I attend despite my fever. I murmured that I couldn't go, but Daniel ignored me and left the house. If I didn't go, who knew what he'd do to me next? Desperate, I put on makeup, fixed my hair, and got ready. But every move was slow, and my foggy head made everything take too long. Before I knew it, over an hour had passed since Daniel left. Daniel called to rush me, annoyed that I hadn't arrived yet. "Get it together. Come to the celebration now. Are you trying to embarrass me?" he snapped. I quickly called a taxi and arrived at the in-laws' house, hoping this would prevent more scolding. But when I got there, the relatives and guests looked at me in disbelief. "Scarlett, what are you wearing?" Even Olivia, who noticed me, looked puzzled. I caught my reflection in a full-length mirror in the house. My makeup and hair were a mess. The word disheveled didn't even begin to describe how I looked. I apologized to Olivia, who gave me a cold stare, and she sighed in disbelief. "Scarlett, you should break up with Daniel," she said. To my surprise, Daniel chimed in cheerfully. "Come on, Mom, give her a break. She just overslept. She didn't even remember it was your birthday." I bowed my head at his unhelpful comment, and then a loud slap resonated through the room. I looked up to see that Olivia had slapped Daniel. "Why?" Daniel asked, his face a mix of disbelief and anger. "Daniel, did you force Scarlett to come even though she's clearly unwell? Is that how a person should act?" Olivia demanded, her voice firm and disappointed. Daniel tried to argue back. Daniel was slapped on the other cheek before he could speak. Olivia, her face set with determination, said, "I have evidence that you're having an affair. Shall we talk about it? She took Daniel into the study, and I was led to the guest room by my brother-in-law, Andrew, to rest. Exhaustion and medication soon sent me into a deep sleep. When I woke up, it was nighttime. Daniel sat in submission, and Olivia looked exasperated. Olivia quickly filled me in on what had happened. Daniel had been dating someone even before our marriage and had plans to marry her. However, Daniel's ex had a kleptomania issue and had stolen from Olivia during a visit to their home. Naturally, Olivia banned her from the house and made it clear they wouldn't support Daniel if he married her. That's why Daniel chose me as a cover-up. He thought I resembled his late sister, hoping Olivia would like me and, in turn, approve of him. Olivia didn't elaborate further, but I suspected that Daniel also saw my docile nature as an opportunity to manipulate me. Daniel planned to break up with you after he became CEO. I've only met Scarlett a few times a year, but she seemed less lively each time. That's why I investigated, Olivia said, her voice tinged with sorrow. I'm really sorry about Daniel. Suddenly, everything made sense. Daniel had never loved me from the start. Surprisingly, I felt more relieved than sad because I had already been contemplating leaving. Love had turned into fear after all the shouting and abuse. Olivia, I'm leaving him, I said firmly. Olivia nodded. Daniel, you'd better pay the alimony properly in court. Sign these divorce papers and this pledge. She demanded $50,000 in alimony and that I quit my job. Daniel was in disbelief as I tried to process the possibility of losing my job. Turning to me for help, he pleaded through tears, I really loved you, Scarlett. I was just meeting my ex because she's relentless. I didn't know what she'd do if I didn't. Trust me. But his tears weren't for me. I still had the bruise from that morning. I could easily get a medical report and file charges, I warned him. Sign the papers if you don't want to be sued. Olivia, unaware of the physical abuse, burst into tears and began hitting Daniel. You're a terrible person. Don't ever come back home. We're done, she yelled. Andrew stepped in, and Daniel, sobbing, signed the papers. If he regretted it so much, he shouldn't have done it in the first place, I thought. I wondered if I also had a part in this for putting up with it for so long. Watching Daniel cry, I vowed never to neglect my own feelings again. After the divorce, I focused on moving and job hunting. It was a hectic time, but Andrew helped me find a new place, and Olivia even referred me to a job. I was being pampered, really. I managed to find a job in my previous field and recently received a job offer based on merit after a proper interview, not connections. Ever since, Olivia has been a bit overprotective, which worries me a little. But starting a new job while adjusting to a new lifestyle is bound to be challenging. Still, I feel more satisfied and secure than anxious. About a year after the divorce, I ran into Daniel loitering near my workplace. He looked awful, his clothes were dirty, and he lacked the energy he once had. Long story short, he had been dumped by his girlfriend and wanted to get back together with me. I couldn't help but laugh. I then showed him my right hand, where a new ring sparkled. I've been dating your brother recently. I'm not sure about marriage yet, but I do know he's a much better person than you. Plus, he's next in line to be CEO. Daniel had always arrogantly assumed he would take over the family business, but Olivia never considered him a suitable successor. Being married to him was a struggle, but there's one thing I'm grateful for. He introduced me to a family where I'm truly cherished now. With a smile, I conveyed this to Daniel. He collapsed on the spot, falling to his knees and sobbing. That was the moment I felt truly glad to have left him. While I still can't contemplate marriage due to my history with Daniel, I've decided to trust those who supported me during my toughest times. From now on, I'll live being true to my feelings.